we're doing this. This is episode 359 of No Laugh Track Podcast. My name is Justin Severson. I get to host this. Very thankful for that because it is Acme's podcast. We're here at Acme in Minneapolis. My guest today was here once before, earlier this year in June. But it wasn't solo. She had to share. Yeah. She had to share the attention with Tim Slagle. It was Crash and Burn Week. Sara Schaefer is here.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad to be back.
On the podcast, you mean?
Just the podcast. That's why I came.
Specifically, right? Is that
I will do it, but only if I get to be on the podcast.
I need more time. I didn't get to say everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Welcome back. Here we are. You got your headlining week. You don't get to share. You don't have to share.
No, it's all me.
It's not.
Pressure's on me now.
It's Let's talk about Crash and Burn.
Yeah.
So now that it's over, it was back in June. If people listening to this podcast have to know what Crash and Burn is. If you don't,
pay attention.
I mean, we've talked about it. There's been 8 shows dedicated for it or something like that over the years. 7 or 8. In any case, so Sara was one of the 4 comics who had to try brand new material that week that you'd never done before.
Yeah.
How did it go?
It was great. It was so fun. I did get a lot of new material out of it.
Really? Anything people will hear this week?
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's a main joke now. It's about this meditation app that I've been using.
Yes,
Sleepcast.
I remember that.
And it's funny because it doesn't work as well in LA.
No shit.
I think people are maybe in LA, they're a little ahead of the curve on meditation. And so they're like, why are you making fun of meditating? And I'm not. The joke is about something else. If you come see me this week, you'll hear it.
If it's anything close to what I heard back in June.
It's not really making fun of meditation. And it's making fun of me not being able to do it properly. And,
Oh, it's funny.
So,
funny.
I don't know. LA crowds are just a little harder anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, they're fun, but they're, I don't know. They're more a lot of people in the audience are entertainment business type people. And so they're coming at it with a different set of expectations.
Sure.
Or they're analyzing what you're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas when you go out into the, into the wilds of America, it's more
us real folks here.
Yeah, the
Minnesota.
real folk. It's more people I came here to laugh. I came here to laugh, and it depends on the city, but yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll be doing some of that stuff and some new material that I couldn't do at Crash and Burn.
Right.
And Tim was so strict. I had emailed him the week before. And I was like, I said something at a show once, a week ago, but it wasn't really a show, a big show, and it was just off the cuff. And he's like, no, you can't do it. And I was like, oh, and it made me a little scared.
That's good. That was good of you to check. You wouldn't have been caught.
I'm a rule follower. So
that's good.
One of those jokes that was brand new at that time is now one of my favorite jokes in my act. So I'll be doing that. And I'm doing some older material too. But it's fun. I had been doing the same hour essentially for almost 2 years.
Okay.
Because I had a run at Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and then I was on the road a lot, and I was doing basically the same set of jokes for a really long time. And then I recorded my half-hour special earlier this year in January. And so I'm ready for new stuff, but I'm not quite to a new hour yet. So I'm mixing in this stuff. And it's actually fun because I'm
it's gotta be fun.
These jokes actually go well together. And I wish I hadn't burned it on the half hour because this goes better with this now. And so I'm kind of you'll see that if you come see me, I'm doing, there's no real cohesive theme right now to what I'm doing on stage, which is fine. It's still me, it's me is the theme, right. My voice, but it's a fun place to be because I'm very relaxed.
Have you normally had a rule about burning material, doing it if it's recorded then it's done?
No, especially live. Live it's I do what I feel like doing. It's when I sometimes by the time what happens is by the time I record it for an album or a special, I'm so tired of it by that point that's the point I stop doing it live because I don't need to practice it anymore. And so I'm done with it. But it's funny how now there's jokes, really old jokes, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if I could bring that back and tweak it.
Yeah.
And, just in live settings, when I want to hit a certain audience with certain types of material. But yeah.
Recently, I've had guests on that have been doing comedy, some have been doing it 25, 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
So they have these old, on Amazon Prime is A&E's live from the
Oh,
Improv.
wow. That's old. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been going back and like bringing up do you remember doing a joke about this? And, just Tom Rhodes, we actually did that part of the conversation after we were done recording last week, which was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
We should have had it on.
Yeah.
But him, I was just giving him a couple lines, and him trying to recite these jokes from 30 years ago was crazy.
Yeah, it's amazing how it sticks in your head where you can do it.
Yeah.
Last night I haven't headlined in a while.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask you about that.
I was a little rusty, doing a full hour. Okay. So I was up here kind of I went over all my jokes yesterday and was prepped, but it's still different than doing it. And
Sure.
so I was up here wait, what is the part? But it's funny how it just comes right back in. It's usually if I practice the beginning of the joke, the first line. Okay. Now my brain accesses the rest of it.
Yeah.
I would love my therapist always talks about wanting to study a comedian's brain. What's happening when we're on stage.
Hasn't someone done that?
No.
Really?
Because, think about it. How would you... she wants to hook up stuff to, the head. It would be it would be hilarious because the comedian would play with it and they'd be like, oh, they're studying me right now.
On stage?
Yeah, I think it would be awesome.
That would be totally awesome.
I should really spearhead this. I should do a fundraiser.
Yes.
But because she was talking about how... I was explaining to her, what happens when you're performing... And she was like, God, you're using so many different parts of your brain simultaneously. Yeah. So, you're accessing memory, you're in your environment in the present, reacting to stimuli in the present. So, the reaction of the audience, noises, you're performing, you're doing so much at once that I think it's similar. They've studied people who play piano, and it's using left and right brain at the same time.
Okay.
And I'm absolutely positive that a comedian is using both of those.
Oh, absolutely.
It has to be, you're doing something physical. Not to brag, but we're fucking killing it.
It would be so interesting, especially comparing you with other,
different comedians using different,
women, other men,
yeah,
people with different styles.
Yeah, what's going on? Different parts of the brain light up and stuff like that. They can tell, I've always thought that, because this came up because I was describing to her my experience filming my half hour, which airs on November 22nd on Comedy Central. Please watch it.
Yeah.
And I'm very proud of how it came out, but the experience itself was really interesting and challenging, and things went wrong, and and it was great. You won't even know. Okay. And that's what I love. When I watched it back, I'm like, this is incredible. What was happening in my head versus what is being presented is crazy. That you're able to overcome things in the environment that sort of screw with it, and then you're still able to do your stuff. But that's what I've been doing this brain app recently, a Lumosity, or it's brain exercises. And I was shocked to find out. I didn't know. It tells you where you're at, with other people that are using the app, your percentile. And I'm not going to brag. I'm doing real well.
Compared to people.
To other people who are using the app, you're in the 95th percentile for this, or and it's all these different strengths flexibility, attention, memory. I think math is one of them. Math is my worst one. Okay. And I avoid the math games in general because I'm I don't want to do fucking math, but I should because I think it's good for your brain. But I didn't know what I would fall in, and my memory and attention are the highest. I'm in the 99th percentile, memory and attention span.
Wow.
Which I did not think that was what it was going to be, but it made sense when I started thinking about it. I was like, well, for my job, I have to memorize things sometimes very quickly. From one show to the next, I'm like, oh, you did that joke, remember that, bring that back in, or, and attention is something I've worked a lot on in comedy, and being able to focus on what I'm doing and not be derailed by the slightest little noise, a siren going by, or whatever. Sure. So I was it was just a really interesting to see those results come back and be oh, I guess I am. But it's funny because the app also tells you like what job you would be good at.
Oh my goodness. And?
Like research and development. Like, I don't even know what that means because I don't know what that career is.
Yeah, I'm like, that was my,
Yeah,
okay.
I was like, what?
I don't even know how to research and develop. Congrats?
Like,
I don't know.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
Sorry?
Some of it is, I mean, I'm sure a lot of this app is like total hogwash, but it's just, and it's using, you're not being forced to diversify it'll give you like each day it'll be like your workout, and it'll give you different games that challenge different parts of your brain.
Oh yeah.
But you can also just play what games you like to play, and so I tend to go to certain
The
games.
ones you're good
at. Yeah. Well, and it's not the ones that like really get me tingling. Like I'm like, ooh, I felt like I worked out.
So have you got your boyfriend to do it so you can compare it to him?
No, I told him, I was like, I want to see you, because he's very good at video games. So, and he wouldn't say he's very good at video games, like compared to people who are really serious about it, but he plays a lot of video games, and he can pick up a new one and just immediately know what to do. And I was like, I'd be interested to see, like, on some of the ones that I'm really good at, like, could you even go toe to toe? Yeah. Like, because I don't play video games anymore. Like, once we got past Super Nintendo, I stopped. Like, and so any new buttons, it's too overwhelming.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
And so he's always like, come on, play. And I'm like, I'm not going to play. So I'll watch him play certain games. But last Thanksgiving, he had some family in town, and I had always told him the one game that I was always so good, and I like Tetris type games, but I was like, the one game I was always really good at was Dr. Mario.
Oh yeah.
Haven't played it in 30 years. No, like literally 30 years. And he got all the old Nintendo games loaded up. And he's like, Sarah, we're going to play Dr. Mario. And I like had just enough, like 2 beers or something. I was like, okay, fine. So and he has the old controllers. Yeah, so nice. I knew how to play it. So I play it, and I am out the gate destroying everyone. Like, no one can beat me. And Scott was losing his mind. He was like, this is so unfair. I was like, I just came out the gate.
Have you been practicing on your phone with like what's it, fruit game?
Never. None. And this was before I got the Lumosity app. Like, I never play games on my phone. Never. Yeah. I'm just not a video game person or a phone game or anything. And I just out the gate was smoking everyone. And they were like so mad. I mean, Scott couldn't handle it. He was like, I can't believe after all this time you just pick up you say you can't, I'm not good. And it was like I was tricking everyone.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
What is that scam? Like the pool scam?
Right, the slow play, like the yeah. Let's get the sucker in here. She will take all of her money playing, poker.
And then at the end,
you leave with everybody's dough.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I won the championship of that. No one could beat me. He beat me once. He's like it was really funny. He's like 2 out of 3, and I was like, okay, fine.
Ridiculous.
Over and over.
I wonder. Is there any chance that app, like the positivity it gives back to you, is based on how much you? Did you have to pay for that app?
Yeah, you pay for it. Yeah, I'm sure it could be lying to me and being like, "You're really smart." And I'm like, if I went toe to toe with someone else, it would totally be.
Try
destroyed.
the free version. It might be different.
But I find it meditative. Like where when I play it at night, and it's games that require your total focus.
Mm-hmm.
And so I stop thinking, which is my big problem at night. I'm thinking too much about the day or my whole life. And so it helps me turn, and I play until I am almost unable to keep my eyes open, and then I put it down, and I go right to sleep.
Can I tell you the brain game that I did last night?
Yeah.
I couldn't find, I was trying to log into my Kohl's account to buy one of my daughters some socks.
Yeah.
And for some reason, it wasn't letting me log in, even though the day before I'd been logged in. So I went on my phone. I have an app that keeps all my passwords safe and secure.
I should do that.
And I know. Anyway, I had to go. That wasn't working. I had to go and try to the point is, it sent me one of those 6-digit access codes or whatever. So memorizing that access code for 3 seconds from that email to enter it into the website.
It's a nice little
doop.
Yeah. And
then I actually thought to myself, boy, if I can't remember 3 sets of 2 digits, which is how I break them up, that's pretty sad.
Yeah. I'm almost positive that if they studied it, that what I'm doing is not healthy. Like, you're not supposed to look at a screen at night, shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
But at the same time, given my other options at night, which is look at social media, which is a disaster and I should never be looking at social media right before I go to bed.
I assume you'll learn that the hard way.
It's
at
a
some
horrible,
points. Yeah.
you'll see something that triggers you and then you're up all night going, they're friends. Those two people are friends that I thought she was loyal to me and now they're friends. Just dumb shit like that like sets you off into why wasn't I invited to the party? Just stuff like that. It's like, why am I spending 1 second of my energy worrying about this?
I just had this happen the other day. I don't remember what it was. Something popped someone's face into my head. And I'm like, hey, wait a minute. We were friends on Facebook. I haven't been seeing messages from them. Then I went in and looked. Add friend. I'm like, what the? This wasn't on my side.
Yeah, it's stuff like that where you open up a Pandora's box of hell.
I found 2 in the last 6 months, and I'm like, what the fuck?
And that's what social media does.
What did I do?
Yeah.
What did I do? Did I? What am I? I'm like going through a million things. Like, why do I even care? I wasn't even really friends with this person.
And it's sometimes not personal. Sometimes it's that they just deleted and then reactivated their. It could be a million reasons or accidental. Like
I'm looking through the people they're still friends with. I'm like, but I'm still
mutual
friends with them. We went to high school together. Right. What did I?
Yeah, 100%. I
unfollowed. Dated. Yeah, like what?
This summer, I unfollowed a comedian on Twitter in an emotional state because they were doing something that really bugs me, and I unfollowed them, and then I tweeted a subtweet like officially unfollowing anyone who does this, and then I guess they saw me and realized I had done it, so they unfollowed me back.
Oh,
and then I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that person cared about what I thought or noticed, and then.
The passive aggressiveness was going all around.
Yeah, it was so dumb. And I was just like, why did I do that? I should have just muted. Like, who cares? And then I months later saw him at a show, and we were perfectly nice to each other. So I was like, okay, it's not personal. It's just social media is truly a separate and I used to be like social media is real life. It's mainly because I wanted to emphasize that if you say something cruel to someone online, it's the same as saying it to their face, that it hurts. It's not like it doesn't have an effect.
Yeah.
I used to say that. Now I'm like, no, it is a separate world. And it isn't, the stakes are not the same as they are in real life. And when you have a conversation with someone in real life, you have humanity between you.
Yeah.
Whereas on social media, that is now, and that's what I was complaining about actually.
Oh, okay.
Was social media forces us in, or it just sort of does it because it rewards this behavior. That's part of why it does it, into making very inflammatory black and white decrees.
Yes.
This is what social media is sort of, I wish they would study this, but like that if you go on social media and you go, if you say the word dingle dong, you are not allowed in the group. Mm-hmm. This is an example, if you say this, you're not in the group. And that could be you're not a real comedian. You are racist. You are, it's an equation that people will set up on social media.
Oh, yeah.
If you do this, you're one of the bad ones. And that type of talk is so destructive. It's because it's never black and white. And people live in these in-between worlds. And so it becomes all these purity tests. Like, I see this happening within each group online. Like, it could be political. It could be like amongst the left,
Purity test. I like that.
If you're this, then if you support this, that means you're a neo-liberal. Like these terms that it's just like, and it's like half of y'all don't even know what these terms really mean.
That's true.
Or if you don't support this person, you're not, you're not
Wake
a real
up!
Musician, or whatever the group is that's trying to create, it's social dynamics and scapegoating and all this stuff. And it's like, I'm just done with it.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it. I've stopped commenting on comedy. Comedy is something I really care about, and I would get in arguments about it online.
Yes.
And I just stopped. This summer, I stopped. I was like, no more.
It's
and there's been a lot of great stuff to comment on. It's been very difficult. It's like quitting smoking cigarettes.
Yeah. I have to say, I listened to you on a podcast that must have been recorded in this spring. And the host said something to you about that, about how he has known that about you for years, that you comment on things and giving out advice and having opinion on things in comedy.
Someone at a show around this time this summer, because I got into a big fight with a bunch of comedians online, and he was like, a friend of mine, I saw him at a show that week, and he goes, "Oh, did you see what happened with so-and-so? Is this other drama starting online over something?" And I went, "Oh, no, what?" And he goes, I said, "Oh, yeah, I saw it." And he goes, "Oh, where's one of your famous Sara Schaefer threads?" And I went, "Oh, I don't want to be known for that. That's just ridiculous." Like, and that's your that's your outward facing self online, and people just think that's all you are.
Yeah.
And of course it's not all I am. It's not nobody is all they are on social media. So I just stopped, and it's been really good for my mental health.
That's good.
But it's sometimes I just want to say it. I want to be like, you know what? Here's my opinion. And because I get harassed too much. It's too, and you get comments like that, and it's just too much. And
to try to spend a little less time on Facebook specifically, for me, I moved it to the second page on my phone, so it's not right on the home page when I open it up. It's maybe affected it a little bit, but I'm still going on there.
Yeah, I still follow. Like when things blow up, like whatever, the guy getting fired from SNL, and there was a...
What's that? No, I'm kidding.
Oh, God. I was like, no, don't make me explain it.
I'm kidding. No.
And that's the thing. I'll comment on it on a podcast or whatever, and I know, and because of that, because I haven't reacted online, what it allows me is to take more time to figure out how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So then if someone does ask me, I have a more nuanced response that's not going to get me in trouble.
Yeah. I mean, there's always been a thing of people, I'm going to be the first to...
Oh, yeah, because that gives you more... If you're the first to make an observation, you get the retweets and the faves. And we are in a business where more followers and more faves and more exposure literally brings more money into your pocket. Mm-hmm. And so the system is set up to reward inflammatory, black and white, angry debates.
Yeah.
Hatred is reward. Hatred is such a... People mean it, I mean it as like hateful speech or angry speech or outrage speech. Mm-hmm. And it's from all sides. It's not one side,
Right.
And that's part of this whole cancel culture triggered conversation is just like much of that exists online.
You have the track on your album.
Yeah, I talk about it. And that's the thing. People think, I get told all the time online, oh, you're someone who hates free speech. And you are on that, you're one of these feminist woke scold is the term, woke scold.
Oh.
And you don't want comedy to exist. And it's just like, I am a comedian. Yeah. Now maybe I'm not in your corral of comedians that you like, but I make a living doing this. And I'm talented and I'm hardworking and I've actually achieved a lot in my career.
Yeah.
So no, I actually am pro free speech, and I'm anti outrage when it's just useless. Mm-hmm. I think there is useful outrage, which is when we are fighting against injustice, criminal behavior amongst our own or whatever, or, like real systematic problems that are hurting people. Like outrage is very useful. But when it's not useful is when I'm on there, or someone's on there just like harassing someone to the point where what are you trying to do? Get them to kill? You really are trying. Some people literally want you to kill yourself. They're saying kill yourself.
Yeah,
and
it's terrible.
It's just like what sort of misery are you in? And there's some group dynamic too, which is there's an identity that forms amongst people who feel there's some scuffle going on in the theater.
People are running behind us. I don't know what's going on.
Everyone's gone. We go out. The end of the world has happened. We're like, everyone's dead. We survived because we were doing a podcast about comedy. No, but like the group dynamic of like, I have noticed that there's this sort of group identity that forms that, okay, let's say you're a comedy fan, but you're a fan of you're like a hardcore fan of one group or one podcast, and you find, and you're part of the message boards and the conversation, and you have, whether you realize it or not, you've now sort of getting a little bit of your self-worth and identity for belonging to this fandom.
Yes.
And this goes for girls who love One Direction, to guys who love, certain, like Joe Rogan or like, there's these groups. And if you're part of what I call a fandom, or not, I don't call it that. Everyone calls it. Right. If you're part of a fandom, you can be caught up in a group identity, and you're getting you feel like you belong and you're part of something, and that when the fandom or the thing that you are a fan of is under attack, quote unquote under attack, you now mobilize as a group to protect, to protect the identity, to protect the group dynamic. And,
I got your back, bro.
And sometimes it works really well when the leader of the fandom plays victim a little bit. Because now they've mobilized, and I say play victim like, we're under attack. They want us to go away. They don't like what we're doing. But we get it, fam.
Yep.
We're part of it. We get it. And you guys are my special fans. And it's this sort of symbiotic relationship. And so then outrage is actually currency for some of these people, where they say something intentionally inflammatory. And I've noticed it work on a very small level for me. So I know that people who are super feminist or like woke, like they like some of the things I say, little jabs I'll make, or, proclamations. This is in the past. And I'll get a lot of followers. And, I don't have like a fandom around me, but I have people that like what I do.
Yeah.
And they'll elevate it, and it gets a lot of likes. I get new followers. It's very exciting. But I realize the more inflammatory and the more angry I sound, the bigger it gets. And so I have an incentive now to be that way.
Yeah.
And so I understand how certain comedians with podcasts who like cancel culture trigger, if they're triggered, I can't say anything. And they're sort of like, help me, I'm a victim. And it's sort of, or they'll bring up something that they find like is an injustice. Or they'll say something intentionally racist or like make a sort of off-color joke, knowing it's going to piss people off, hoping it will cause outrage because it proves their point. And it's just like this vicious cycle. And I had to opt out of it because I realized I was being a part of it. I was helping this cycle. And I just was like, you know what? If you want to know my opinion about these comedy debates, you have to know me. It's a privilege to know what I think about it, or invite me on a podcast where we can have a more nuanced conversation. And podcasts are dangerous too, because you can take it out of context, as we see happening, and that's going to be out there forever. But at least it allows me time to come to it knowing what I feel about it.
Right.
And there's been times where I've been asked and I've been like, I'm good with it all. Whatever. I'll make some sort of like just very diplomatic response if I don't want to get into it and speak out of school or whatever, so. You,
in the track on your album's called Social Media, right?
Yeah.
Do I have that right?
Yeah.
And and one of the things you say in there is like, it could be anything. People you can say the most, you can say anything and people will be like, no, you're an idiot for thinking that. No, you're
that's wrong.
That's wrong.
Yeah.
I had one, the other day, Howard Stern had two of the guys from the Black Crowes on. They're going to do a tour, a Black
bring them back
reunion, right?
I love it.
So I saw that clip on some site, and I copied and pasted that link onto my Facebook page because I was like, hey, this is kind of cool news. The Black Crowes are going to tour again. And it got some likes and whatnot. A couple comments like, cool, great. And then one guy, 2 out of 5 people's not a reunion.
Oh, jeez.
I'm like, what
do
you want me
right.
to, what do you want anybody to say to that?
I just don't understand ever correcting anyone online. There's been a couple times where I've where I see, my friend is posting something that's a hoax. I'll kind of send them a message and be like, or, what I found though is that usually someone else will tell them.
Yeah.
And so I just generally don't correct people online. I find it very irritating when people especially grammar and stuff like that. That's a semantics thing.
Yeah.
It's like technically, actually, and it's just like you sound like you are horrible to be around. And maybe you're not like that in person, but online you're coming off like a total fucking pill.
Right.
Just like when someone it's like, did you think this was a good way to make friends, or and if that's what makes you feel powerful in the moment, just that little bit of power you have over someone, because so much of it is power dynamics. It's like, I know something that you don't.
Yeah.
I know the difference between affect and effect. You know, like it's like, oh, how small do you feel that gives you a sense of superiority?
They got to tell me the difference because I'm still not sure. But
I always have to Google it, and
Right?
I think I'm like great with grammar, but you're not.
I think I stumbled upon a Twitter account the other day that was I think its only purpose was to correct people between the different theirs. And I'm like, you know what? I like this.
It's actually funny.
Yeah.
You and like your and your.
Yep, your.
Like that one is funny because it's almost always something employed by idiots online.
Yeah.
You're not funny. That's a big one. Or it's just like,
Right.
well, you can't. And there's sort of trends that happen on Twitter where I'm like, okay, we've made that joke. We've pointed that out, and now let's move on. And that's how I feel about like debating, are women funny online? Like I've already had this argument. I've already done it. I've written essays about it. I've said everything I'm going to say. I'm done with it.
Yeah.
And because the temptation is, again, once it's cyclical. I want to get pulled back into it. And I find that with like, and it's a touchy subject, but like Louis C.K., I find that now I'm tired of it. I'm tired of talking about it. I don't want. I have his name, all the various spellings. every week, I'm like, oh, I didn't mute. I have his name muted. I just don't want to. I don't care. I have my feelings about it. I've said them.
Yeah.
I've moved on, and it's actually online. It's very hard to like even explain how I feel about it.
I bet.
But because people just get into these arguments, and it's just I can't do it anymore. It's like every time he performs, we now have to have the conversation again. It's like, I'm done. And I don't want to think about it anymore. I don't want to think about his dick.
No.
It's like, he's going to go and do what he's going to do. And people who like him can go see it. It's like, but why do you need my opinion on it?
Yeah.
And people will go, well, we didn't ask for it. But actually, I do get asked. It's like, because if once you've said it once, now you're the... Hi, Sarah. I'm from what? Would you care commenting? No, I don't want to comment on it. But
just pull up all my old podcasts and just copy something off of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk about you brought it up briefly. I went on. So I don't have Comedy Central at my house. So
neither do I. I shouldn't say that.
So I have to. So I occasionally use someone else's account
We need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get. There's two different channels. Actually, you have connections to both of them. MTV and Comedy Central are the two channels that my wife and I watch together. That I have to pull up someone else's account to watch stuff. So I went on there last night and was like, oh, well, I'm going to watch her new half hour before I talk to her tomorrow.
Oh, yeah.
It's not out. It's not out yet.
It's not out yet. I know. I was like,
what, I'm a week early?
I know. And I was like, God, it would have been better to go into the Acme weekend with it already being out to help promote it. And they wouldn't even give me little clips yet because they space out the promotion because there's so many different comedians that do it. Yeah. So I don't even have a clip of it out yet online. There's just a trailer where you see me for a brief second in it. But like literally Monday, there will be like some teaser clips of some jokes and
days from now.
Yeah, but I'm really happy with how it turned out.
How did you? So but they sent you. You've seen the final cut?
Yeah, I saw the final cut. I saw an earlier cut, and then I watched some of the final. I actually didn't watch the entire final. I just watched a little bit of it and was like, "Oh, this is great." It looks great.
How long did you perform?
I went for like 35, 38 minutes, I think, and then if that, and then they cut it down to like 22.
Yeah.
And the cuts were great. Like I was really nervous because I was like, I don't even know if I can watch it because I'll be so mad if they cut anything incorrectly.
Okay.
Because I did a set one time on a show, and they cut what I felt like they never showed it to me. So, and it was a short set, so it didn't matter. But like I felt that the punchline had been like fucked up. Like the joke itself had been fucked up.
That's not good.
And it was my first time doing stand-up on TV, so I was like really, really excited. And then I watched it, and I was like devastated. I freaked the fuck out. Like I was like, "Hey, it's awful," and it was fine. And like little memes of the jokes went viral, and like it was fine. I just had never been through it before, and I didn't know that it would be like that. So this time I was expecting it to just be a nightmare, just like cutting me off and weird cuts and edits, but it really wasn't. It was like perfect. I was like, I have no notes. I truly have, like, this is so good.
That's awesome.
But yeah, there's, the experience was really, great, and like they made it really fun. It was in New Orleans, and
yeah, they all do them. They do them all in New Orleans, right?
Yeah, now they do. They used to do them in Boston, and I had been to a few of those to see other people's,
Okay.
and it's more fun in New Orleans for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Dulce Sloan was on the podcast a few months ago, and she had some crazy story about the behind the scenes of leading to, because she's on this season too.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
Were you there at the same time?
We were there briefly. We overlapped. Like you know, they put you up for 2 nights, but it's like a 4 or 5 night ordeal.
Okay.
So I wasn't there for all of it. But yeah. I am reluctant to say this just because I don't want Comedy Central to, if they are. I know that they're listening.
There's somebody, you don't see
right.
them behind
Kent
the pillar.
Alterman is this is his favorite podcast. But,
Behind the pillar.
Yeah. Kent Alterman is the president of Comedy Central. Although I think he's leaving. It's been announced. Anyway, inside information for our nerds out there. Google it. But again, what I just said is truly what I feel. Like, I thought it turned out great. I had a really fun time doing it. I'm really proud of it. But there was one little snafu, nothing to do with Comedy Central. I got heckled in the middle of my set. And I was just like, really? And at first it was just some talking, and I thought, oh, someone's just getting settled. You know, they're not, you know, there's a seating situation. You know, because whenever you start a set, there's usually some kind of scuffle going on, and people not fully engaged yet. So I thought that's what it was. But then I realized, like, oh no, someone's like talking at me. And I get to this one line in my joke, and this woman adds like a tag to it, her own tag.
No.
She screams it out from like a balcony. You know, she's like, and I just went, I stopped and I just look at her and I just went, are you really going to do this right now? And I was like, we're doing a taping of a special here. You know?
They all know, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
they
all
know.
know.
There's camera. Yeah, no, they
there's cameras
know.
everywhere,
They
right.
know. And I'm like, we're doing a taping here. And I went, don't help. And I said, and I kept it very short. I was
Don't do your version of help.
Don't yell out. I said, unless you're spoken to. And I said, shut the fuck up. And that got a laugh. But it was like tense. Like, people were like, Sarah, because I was like clearly just pointedly like firm, you know, like shut the fuck up. And then I was like, oh, it's awkward. And so my little, you know, all the things going on in your brain, I was like, go. Because when I got out there was another thing. We had done sound tests and everything, and everyone, and I've been on TV, I've done live TV. I mean, I'm like, so none of this is, I'm pretty in control.
Yeah.
But there was some little weird sound. I'm very sensitive to sounds and stuff. And like, it was maybe because now the room was full. It just sounded a little different. And I was like, is it hissing? What's going on? I don't like the feed. But I was like, you know what? Because I knew I could stop. If there was anything wrong, I could be like, hey, can we go back? And I knew I could do that.
Okay.
But I was like, you know what? I'm fine. And so this is while I'm telling jokes, like right out the start. I'm like,
all those different parts of the brain.
And I'm like, is this crowd a good crowd? You know, like a lot of things are happening. And I'm like, you know what? Save it, because you don't know what's going to happen during the set. Don't stop. Just keep going and pretend you're killing no matter. Because that was some advice I had gotten, was like, no matter what happens, pretend you're killing.
Oh, that's good.
Because on TV, it's going to look like you're killing.
Yeah.
And so just don't worry about it. And it's a different setting than a regular stand-up show. You don't have to react to your environment the way you do normally.
Sure.
You got to be more strict in what you're doing. And so I was like, save it. And then I got heckled, and I was like, I'm glad I didn't do anything, you know, because this was my chance to stop the show.
Yeah.
And I was like, shut the fuck up. And then I was like, ooh, it's tense in here. So I made a joke about her, you know, oh, she's one of the, and it related to the joke I was telling.
Okay.
And then it got a huge laugh. And then I went, now I have to go back because we're taping this. And I need to go back a little. So everybody, you know, and I just kind of fixed it and moved on, and no one ever talked. But apparently in the next show, which was the same audience, so another comic, I was first on the bill.
Okay.
They do 2 at once for one audience. So
but only one show for each performer.
Well, so let's say, no, it's one audience for 2 performers. So like two performances per show.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then, you know, so the second comic came out, and he got heckled by a different person.
Okay.
And he was like, really? After what Sarah said? You know, he like scolded the audience. But again, like, they came out great. Like, his was already aired and it was perfect. And like, you know, so this is all just behind the scenes stuff that like no one at home would ever know. But I can see it. When you watch the special, there's a moment where it's when I'm doing it, I'll just say it's a joke about inspirational quotes.
One of my favorites.
Yep, on rustic pieces of driftwood. And there's a moment where I look, you can see the rage in my face. I look up, and I can't remember the exact moment, but I look up, and it's right when I'm about to be like, shut the fuck up to this woman, because you can't hear her. She's not mic'd, you know.
Right.
And so it's just a quick moment where I look up and it cuts to, and it was seamless. You would never know, but when I watched it back, I was like, that's it. I was like, I can see how mad I am. It's just the slightest thing, but I can see my face. I can tell that I'm like, are you fucking seriously heckling me right now?
You need to grab a still shot of that when it airs.
I do. I mean, my manager was like, you know, she's like, don't talk too much about that online. Be a team player. You know, don't make it seem like you didn't. And I was like, but I did have a great time. Yeah. I actually think that makes it more fun and interesting. And like I overcame it. And like Comedy Central, that's how great of a job they do, is that you can't tell when you're watching it at home that something like that happened. And the way it looked, I mean, the set this year, I just was like blown away. I could not be more excited about it coming out. And it was something that I worked for a really long time. I got rejected 8 years in a row.
Seriously?
And didn't even know that I had been like submitted this year. Like my agents did it for me.
Oh,
you know,
great surprise.
And of course I wanted it, but I just wasn't paying attention. And I was like, well, I guess that's not really in the cards for me.
Yeah.
And then it happened.
That's
and
awesome.
It was like, never give up. That's what I say. Never give up.
Yeah,
and then when I did do it, I was ready and I could handle little moments like that. And it came off flawless. I mean, I'm just so excited for it to be out there.
That's great.
Especially for my haters who think I'm not a real comedian.
Hate is gonna hate.
Because I have different opinions about Louis C.K. than you.
I mean,
that's the kind of purity test I'm talking about. It's like, well, I can feel that way and still have a comedy career. Isn't that... He can still have one too. Life's not fair.
No.
And actually, I don't want to make it sound like I don't think he should have a career. I don't give a shit. I just personally wouldn't really want to be around him.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough.
That's me.
Yeah.
And I'm allowed to feel that way.
Absolutely.
I still love comedy. Isn't that funny how that works that way?
Ditto.
Yeah.
Ditto. I have a question for you that has nothing to do with anything we've been talking about.
Okay, great.
And nobody probably cares about that, about what I'm about to ask you about, but me. But I'm going to do it anyway.
Do it.
You are from Richmond, Virginia area? Not exactly Richmond, probably?
Yeah, no, Richmond, essentially. Right outside Richmond. And spent a lot of... I went to school downtown Richmond, and I'm, you know... So Richmond, I would say I'm from there, but I'm just right from the outside.
6-7 years ago, I would not have made this connection, but I went to a NASCAR race like 5 years ago and have become somewhat of a NASCAR fan.
Yeah.
There is a NASCAR track in Richmond.
The Southside Speedway?
Whatever it's called.
Well, there was, and it could be more than one, but there was, we could hear it from my house growing up.
Okay.
On a certain night with, like, if the weather was a certain way, you could hear it. It was pretty far from me, but you could hear it because that's how loud it was.
Oh, they're crazy loud.
Yeah, and
there's no chance if you didn't get the NASCAR bug living down in that area?
No, not really. No. We would watch big races on TV, and I don't think I've ever been to a race car event, but...
I hadn't until 5 or 6 years ago, and it was so much fun.
Yeah,
they're so fast and so loud.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. I mean, I think I've seen. I must have been to a track at some point where I saw a car, and it was just like, oh, it took my breath away how fast that was.
Yeah,
and yeah.
It's just a little. What was that? Oh, holy cow!
Yeah.
Okay, so then, so that's that, and then I was looking into the high school that you went to.
Yeah,
it's like crazy prestigious.
It is. It wasn't when I went there.
It wasn't?
So, well, okay. So I went.
So what changed? Are you being?
Well, I went when it was very young. The school, it was called the Governor School for Government and International Studies when I went there. Now it's called Maggie Walker Governor School.
Maggie L. Walker Governor School.
Yeah, Maggie L. Walker
for Government International Studies.
So it was one of the first magnet schools, like in Virginia.
Okay.
Those types of schools, this is the 90s, were new. And what they are, it's different from a charter
High five,
school.
sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Magnet school, 90s.
Yeah, magnet school of the 90s. It was like you really were a renegade, You were doing something different.
Mine was multicultural studies.
Yeah. And I went to I have no interest in government and international studies, but it was the only one, and I was really interested in going to a nerd school. So, I was in the first full-size graduating class of that school. The first class was much smaller. They were sort of like a seed test.
Okay.
You know, they were like 50 kids, and then in my class there was 100, I think, around 100.
Okay.
And it was sort of a Wild West. We were in this old, decrepit building in downtown Richmond. We shared with another type of school. Like, it was more like a vocational school where you get your GED. So there was a very different crowd of kids. Yeah. And
did you ride the bus together?
Some conflict. No, you had to take because we had different hours, so we were like on a slightly different schedule than them.
Oh, so they did the best to keep you separated.
They did. I mean, we did sports together.
Okay.
But like, yeah, there wasn't much. But then they moved to they renovated a school near there, and that was Maggie Walker, and it is now what it is. And it was a really great school. I felt like I got away from the cliques and the social hierarchies of a big county school, which is where I was at for my freshman year.
Okay.
And I transferred my sophomore year to Governor School, and it was just like everyone was sort of equal there, and everyone was a little nerdy. And I'm still friends with a lot of people I went to high school with.
Nice.
I spoke at the graduation
a
while back, which was like a dream come true.
Yeah. I read your speech that you have posted.
I hate the speech. But anyway, let's move on. No, I don't hate it. I just like, I'm so critical of anything I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you should have changed that. You should have done that, But now the school is like one of the top 20 schools in the country.
Yeah.
And I like probably couldn't get in now as an adult,
I wrote down it's like 16 to 17% get accepted.
Yeah, it's a tough school to get into now. And it was hard to get in back then, but but it was just not as known.
Okay.
It was new, and it was like you had to be someone who had a little bit of an adventurous spirit, and you were kind of like a bad news bear, ragtag kind of kid who, you were smart, but maybe you didn't really feel like you belonged where you were.
Sure.
And so you were looking for something new and kind of exciting, and I loved it.
I said that the high school I went to was multicultural studies. That's only because it was in a neighborhood where white was the minority. Like what else was it going to be?
You're studying another culture just by being around them. That is kind of how it works.
I mean, it's 100% true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my school, the Governor School, was even just our school was more diverse than the school that I went to. I mean, it was like majority white, but there was way more of a spectrum of people at that school, because I don't know. I don't know if they intentionally were like pushing for diversity or what, but we all came from different counties. It was multicultural in that way that everyone sort of came. It was a magnet. It brought in people from all around.
You don't have to talk about the speech itself.
No, it's
you
fine.
Clearly don't want to. No. But I want to ask. Mm-hmm. Who was the one that asked you to do it? How did they present that to you?
Funny. I was like gone. It was after I did Nikki and Sarah.
I was going to say, where were you in your career exactly?
The
MTV show you had?
Yeah, I had my own show, and that was a very big moment, and a lot of people from hometown were very excited about it. And I was traveling a lot. Like around the Christmas after that, I was just gone from New York, and I came back and I had this huge stack of mail. There was just so much junk mail and just so much crap.
Sure.
And went through it, eventually, and I mean, it probably sat there for a couple months, and I opened this letter. Because I would get letters from the Governor's School, like asking for alumni donations.
I was going to say, for money, probably, yeah.
And I got this letter, and I opened it, and I was like, wait, what is this? It's like directly to me. It's like, Dear Sarah, we would cordially like to invite you.
Yeah, that's what I want to hear.
And I was like, what? And it was students had written it.
Okay.
It was like president class of, whatever year it was. And I was like, are you serious? And I was like, is it too late? I definitely want to do this. And it was so wonderful. The kids didn't even seem to really care. They were into it, but it was their day. They're not thinking about me.
Sure.
They liked the speech. There was laughter and stuff, but afterwards nobody was like running. The parents, though, the teachers and the parents were just mobbing me. Like, that was the best graduation speech I've ever heard. I think maybe because they're used to boring.
Of course.
Oh,
yeah.
And I brought flavor to it and funny, and like they just, they loved it.
Yeah.
And it was, I got a lot of like really positive feedback, and my dad was there, and It was, and my sister. It was fun.
Very cool. How big was the graduating class that you had to sit through a ceremony? It wasn't like a 600 or something.
No, it was
small.
Around between 150, 200.
Oh, nice.
And like they did these kids are like crazy genius. Like they did a musical performance that was like better. I was like this, and it was one of those like Mumford and Sons type songs, where they had like drum. I mean, like they sounded fucking good. I was like, oh my God, like, it was great.
I love that.
They were very sweet.
I love that. Did you let's talk super briefly. Because you had a job on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, writing, correct?
Yeah, I wrote questions, and it was such a crazy, weird, odd job. But it was my first TV writing job.
Okay. People
think I wrote for Fallon. A lot of times I'll get that introduced. She wrote for Jimmy Fallon, and I actually did not write for that show. I ran all the digital stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was like called head blogger, and from there I really wanted to be a TV writer, and I just could see the writing on the wall. It wasn't going to happen at Fallon. They just saw me in that role. I was very good at that. That happens in every job. You get stuck in the job you're in, and you kind of have to jump to another ship to like move up.
Yeah.
So I did, and I was like, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Like I want to write for comedy. My agent was like, this is actually a really good job. A lot of comedy writers have come through this, job, and like it's get you in the Writers Guild, and and so I applied, and my packet was good, and you had to write like 20 questions or something, and I worked really hard on it. And I had some advice from friends who had written for the show before. Like, they helped me a little.
Oh, that's awesome.
But they were very encouraged. They were like, you're already, like... I had a couple hints on, like, how to do it. And once I got it, I just was like, oh, this is easy. And, of course, then I start, and it became very challenging because you had to write a quota, like 12 questions a day.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound like a lot until you're doing it every day, and you can't ask a question that's already been asked.
I was just going to ask you.
And the database was like 100,000 questions, no joke. Because the show, by the time I was on it, Meredith Vieira was the host. It was daytime. It had been on the air for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So there was just an enormous amount of questions in this database. So you had to search the database with keywords to make sure your question had not ever been put in there.
Wow.
You had to... One of the hardest parts I found was... knowing how hard a question was, because when you know the answer, it's hard to determine how difficult it is.
Yeah.
So I relied on other people that were more experienced to help me with that. But the other challenge was that even the easy questions, or even the hard questions, couldn't be so hard. The way they described it was, it's a play-along show. So the reason why people want to watch it is because they feel like they could win.
From home.
And so...
Yeah.
The frame, maybe the fact is very hard. Like $1 million question is extremely difficult to get right, but the frame of reference has to be one that we all get. So, for instance, for some reason they were like, "You're good at art questions. We need more art questions. Ask more art questions."
Okay.
So they were like, so I started writing. And they're like, well, so this question is just like, no one knows that painting or artist. So they were like, basically there's only 10 paintings that everyone knows. It's true. Think about it. There's Mona Lisa, The Scream, a couple, Monet's. Like, I mean, there's really only a small amount of painting.
The old couple with the pitchfork.
Yeah, that everyone knows.
American Gothic.
So, American Gothic. So you have to write new questions about those paintings. Well, good luck, because all of them have been asked.
Right.
So, there was, it was really challenging, and I had like little tricks. I had like sources that I would go to that, and I wouldn't let the writers were very protective of their sources because, because once you asked the question, no one else could ask it. So especially you were allowed to put in some topical questions if they were something that was really big. So like a question about Beyonce, like a huge moment, Lemonade or the Homecoming, like what festival that would be. I mean, this is way after my time, but that would be a question that you could put in as topical. What festival did Beyonce headline?
Sure.
And the answer would be Coachella. Those type of topical questions were allowed. When you knew the story was big enough, you could put it in. But if you got there 20 minutes late, the other writers had already put it in,
the topical one.
Yeah, so like people would race.
Jeez.
And it'd be like, and you'd yell out like, God damn it, David, like, because you had to get your quota every day. And it was like, and sometimes I would wait because I couldn't think of anything. It would be 4:30 p.m. and I would be like, I've only written 2 questions.
Wow.
Because they would warn me. They were like, the first week you're going to be flying and you'll be done every day. It'll be so easy. And then you're going to hit a wall and you're going to realize you don't know where to get these questions. You don't know how to come up with them. So I had methods. I had websites. I had like little fun fact website, fact of the day. And you could never rely on, because they had a whole research team that would fact check your questions, because there's money on the line. They have to be provable.
Hell yeah.
The show has been sued. There's an amazing documentary.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
No, but I know about it.
About the guy
couple that cheated?
No, I don't even know what that is. I should watch that. There's a guy. The guy is crazy, and the documentary ends up becoming about how weird he is.
Oh, no.
In the very early Regis days, when the show first premiered, he got to the very end and he lost, and he didn't get the $1 million. And he sued the show because the way they asked it was like, what is the highest city in the world? And there's different ways to interpret that. Oh. And he was like, the 4 choices did not, he basically, I don't think he won it. He ended up winning $1 million. But I know, no one said this directly, but when you asked a question, you had to say, of the following, which is
makes sense.
Biggest, mall.
Yeah.
Like, you had to put that wording in so that they could not legally sue you. We're like, well, technically there's a mall in,
Yeah.
So you can't say, what is the tallest mountain? Say, of the following mountains, which is the tallest?
That makes sense. That makes
There's
sense.
little tricks like that I learned. And like, we never got to see production. We never got to go to a taping.
No, okay.
One time I was we toured the set because we had to be, there had to be a wall between us and production. I met Meredith once at the very end because it was money on the line. Anyone who knew the questions could not be in contact with and we weren't allowed to work at home because you had to be in the office, logged into the database.
Oh, so there's
it was
no other
very
copies
secure.
of
Yeah,
what
it was
you
like
are
a
doing.
real big deal. Like
that
it was
makes
cool.
sense.
And but yeah, I was super into it. But I did 1 season, and then I got my pilot for MTV, so I got out of there.
Oh,
quick.
look at that!
I would have done it for many years. Would have been great.
Did any of your questions end up like on a home version or a
maybe
app
I
or
never
anything?
there was a few times where I went back and like watched and was like, I wrote that question, but a lot of times I wouldn't know which questions because they were called like stacks or something. They were like the stack for each show, the stack of questions, and I was not responsible for making the stack like the head writer was. So he would, and the rules were they changed them all the time, but like the rules at the time were different where you didn't move up the scale like from $0, $100 to $1 million.
Oh yeah.
They were mixed up and there's
yeah.
different ways, and they've made it harder, I think, to win $1 million essentially.
I think so. It's done now.
But it's easier.
It's done
it's
now.
easier to. I know it's easier to win. It was easier to win like 20,000 in the new way, but harder to win $1 million.
I see.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
You had a chance of walking away with more money in the beginning and not just being like, oh, I accidentally got the $500 question wrong and now I'm out. It made it easier to win a little bit more money. But yeah, it was really fun, and there was a lot of questions. I had one. Is the show off for sure?
That's what I just read.
Okay, so I'm
yesterday.
not breaking any laws by saying this.
I just read it
I can't
yesterday.
remember. Yeah, I think it's gone. Yeah.
Production ended this spring. Chris Harrison is the last
Yes,
host.
Chris Harrison was the last host, and it's done.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wrote $1 million question, and I guess I can say it now. I'm very proud of it. I don't know if it ever got asked because the $1 million ones would rarely come into play.
True.
But it's actually
only 6 have ever been written.
Yeah, right. No, many have been written but not used.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard it is, but they were like, yeah, this is pretty hard. So one of their favorite types of questions were questions that required you to know multiple facts,
right,
to get to the answer.
Right.
So like that's what made $1 million question so hard. You had to know like, okay, first you have to know this, then this, then this. So it was like in the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off, what painting does Cameron like? There's that famous scene where they go to the museum and he gets like a moment where he's staring. Like it's so they're in the like the Chicago Museum.
Yeah.
And it's this really funny scene where they're, it's sort of like a montage and it's set to music and Cameron is just staring at this painting, and it's like back and forth, closer and closer to his eyes to the painting, and the painting is the Legrand Jet or whatever that pixelated painting is of the park.
Oh yeah.
You know, and it was a hard question. Like, you had to know the movie, you had to know the museum, and you had to know what painting, and you had to know that. So you had, even if you knew the scene, you also had to know the painting. So I was like, that's my favorite question I wrote.
Art mixed, like high society art mixed with complete pop culture.
Yeah. So it was a fun time. I really enjoyed it.
Very cool.
I mainly wrote the easy questions, like level 1 to 5. I don't know what the money breakdown was. I can't remember. They were the hardest to me to write, because easy is very hard to figure out how easy a question is.
Yeah.
And there's the dumb ones, so it's like, how do I come up with a new way to, you know? But yeah, that was what it was explained to me when I started. It was like, an ideal question is, what 2 colors would you have to mix together to get the color of Barney?
Oh. Yeah.
The character Barney. Mm-hmm. So you have to know that Barney is purple, and you have to know that red and blue make purple. Yeah. So that's a little bit easier than but that's an easy question. Mm-hmm. So you just have to know those 2 things. So they were more interesting than just
for sure.
What 2 colors make purple?
Yeah.
You know,
2-parter.
Yeah.
So the quick version of the thing that I read about was I think this was like the British version of the show before it ever came to him. I might have that wrong. The point is, there was a guy who won a whole bunch of money, and they finally figured out that there was someone in the audience coughing.
Oh yes, I have seen that.
Okay.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about. Like,
and they were went back, and like it went to court, and they were like, no, and the guy was like, no, I just had I had a cold or whatever, or
it was
sinuses.
Really...
And they're like, no, we have cameras that followed you from your seat after when the show wasn't filming, and you didn't cough at all then. This is bullshit. Yeah. Wild.
And also weird that, like, why not just have that person play if they know all the answers?
Yeah, right? I know. You're the smart one. You should really be doing this instead of me. Yeah.
Like, at least somebody did have knowledge.
Right?
You know, like, someone who was smart enough kind of won.
Yeah, we got a smart person in there.
Yeah.
We've been doing this for almost an hour here, so we should let...